And the live stream is restarted, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So licensing board, we're still on item 6, which is the hearing for an application for a provisional premises license for Aldi in Macduff. And we are going through the procedure, and we are still at the point where board members can ask questions of the applicant and the applicant's representative. So I'm going to go straight to Miss Loudon, who was making some inquiries during the break.
Yes, no, I have been able to speak to those instructing me. I think they're slightly confused as to how we've got into this position, but I have explained, obviously, with regards to policy. They are concerned about accepting 34.3. They make the point it is an Aberdeenshire average, it's not relevant to Macduff, that essentially a smaller newsagent could come in and seek that capacity and have it, whereas we are a well-known retailer, and obviously you've had my lengthy submission about all the benefits that an Aldi brings to an area, and the link between that and the licensing objectives already. Position essentially is that the alcohol capacity area is calculated to do with the floor space that's allocated, that is done essentially to be able to have this efficiency that Rebecca's referred to with regards to modelling the product coming forward, and I mean that by way of general groceries as well as alcohol. And it is a simple business model. If we interrupt it by having different positions in different places, that creates operational issues for them. They want to be able to operate efficiently to pass on the low prices. They acknowledge the position that we're in as regards appeal and further delay to the store. We don't want to be in that position. We want to be delivering a new Aldi for Christmas for Macduff. So I think the position in essence is, if the board are not able to come away from the Aberdeenshire average of 34.3, then the compromise position, if it was accepted, would be to allow a seasonal, but the seasonal that we have in other places is for Easter, and it is for Christmas time too. So Fiona was exactly right that we would need that additional space for those points in the year. So I don't know how you wish to proceed, convener, but I've been instructed to still move for 40.2, but if the compromise position is 34.3 with seasonal variation, then we need to go ahead and get this license granted and be able to hopefully open for Christmas time. So that's where I get to.
Thank you. You just said one thing there. You said the Aberdeenshire average wasn't relevant to Macduff.
It's difficult because the Aberdeenshire average, why is that relevant to this situation? It's to do with the kind of legal assessment of that. If a board comes and decides a figure and isn't open-minded essentially to an application coming in front of it, and for a decision to be made on the merits of that application, there's a legal attack there. I think it's difficult because essentially I've had 3 localities put to me in terms of the board papers. I've got no information as to what sits behind that 34.3. You will have the Tesco at 60 something or even higher. We've seen Morrison's at 110, and you'll have corner shops. It's why that Aberdeenshire average is relevant to this application. Legally speaking, we've got a locality of Aberdeenshire. We've then got Inverurie, Banff and Macduff, and then we've then got Macduff in terms of the statistics that have been put to me. And that's why I say there can be no over provision assessment, because there's only 3 premises. Again, I've got no statistics as to what capacities they have, but although Fiona has clarified that. So I have legal concerns as to using the 34.3 and where that takes us to. For example, as I've said, you could have a newsagent coming in to seek that capacity, and on the basis of the policy, that is potentially not challengeable if they accept to do that. So I think that's a tricky position for the board to be in, but we need to get a licence moved forward and granted today if we possibly can. So that's why I've got the default position, which would be accepted by the client.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan, please.
Hi, Caroline. Am I right that earlier you said it was something like 3% of your floor space?
Yes, if you do the capacity calculation, just a basic calculation, that's what it comes out as in terms of what else, the floor space and the merchandising, it's about 3%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Menard, please.
Yeah, I'm just looking for some guidance from Fiona regarding this. If we were of a mind to grant just the 3.4 percent,
No,
could
sorry, Richard, can I stop you there? I think you're
sorry.
referring to 34.2 meters
Sorry,
squared.
yeah, 30, yeah. If we were minded to just grant on that, would it be possible for Aldi at a later date to come back and ask for a variation on the license to increase at a later date?
That's always possible, but it'll be subject to the same policy as you're considering now. So it would be back before the board. So you in that sense, it's not relevant. I mean,
No.
if you decide to restrict, you have to have reasons
Yeah.
under the Act to do that. You know, and the applicant's arguing that the benefits that she's outlined, outweigh the alcohol-related harm that you put into place.
Yeah.
And I would remind the board that every policy is a policy and it is not set in tablets of stone. And if evidence is presented to you to satisfy yourselves that the benefits outweigh the harm, then you are justified in granting a departure to the policy. That is always open to the board. So no policy is set in tablets of stone. They are flexible. You have to look at the merits of the case, the arguments that Ms. Loudon has put before you today, and weigh that up against the summary of the requirements of the board's policy as set out in the report, and determine whether the departure to the Aberdeenshire average, the slight increase, and we are talking a slight increase here, is justifiable in the circumstances. You're not looking at refusing, you're looking at, is the departure justifiable in the circumstances?
Thank you, Fiona.
Okay, and I think, can we just, as members, just concentrate on that advice from Fiona? Mr. Goodall, please.
Thank you, Chair. Fiona, it's possibly one for yourself. Given what we've heard, in particular to the points that Caroline made regarding Morrison's and all the rest of it, is it within our remit to perhaps look upon this as a broader area perspective rather than just Macduff, because they will be attracting customers elsewhere, but also into the size, because as she said, as Caroline has said, 34 square meters in a big Morrison's or a big Tesco is not reasonable. So how can we? I'm stumbling across a better expression of what I'm trying to say, but how can we differentiate between that? How can we say if a mega store came in and are we going to say 34 meters? Just a little bit of clarification.
That is what you reached in your policy, Mr. Goodall. After all the extensive research that you did, you set the localities as the local settlements. You concentrated on the top 40, and you set your policy, and you set a watching brief specifically for Macduff. Certainly part of your reasoning can be that the store serves a bigger area than just the locality of Macduff, but as officers we are duty bound to bring this to the board because of the policy that you as a board have put into place, and you defined the settlements as, you know, the localities as the townships, and you have identified a watching brief based on that average figure. And that's what's in the policy. So that's what I am duty bound to give you. But certainly in terms of reasoning and in terms of relevant information that you can take into account in reaching your decision, you can certainly look at the fact that the store will serve a larger area than just the settlement of Macduff. You know, that is perfectly competent for you to do that.
And in respect to the size, Fiona,
that's what you've put into place as your policy. So I can't give you an alternative. I think perhaps the percentage of that alcohol display against the size of any other store, I don't think we have any other store that is as high as is being claimed in the environs of the local settlements around about. The alcohol capacities are all around about the Aberdeenshire average in Banff, Macduff, and around about in terms of supermarkets, because our supermarkets in these towns are they're smaller towns than the likes of Fraserburgh, Inverurie, Peterhead. Therefore, their square footage is smaller. Therefore, their alcohol displays are smaller. But you can certainly take into account the fact that it will serve other towns. But those other stores all got their licenses prior to this policy being put into place. So if they were coming up for a new license today in Macduff, they would be subject to the same provisions as Aldi are.
Okay, Mr. Crowson, and then I am going to move to Ms. Loudon to sum up.
Yeah, thanks. But it just seems, since this seems to be getting into a wider field again, I just wanted to check with Fiona then that can we also consider that, since the reports we have on deprivation and deprived areas having higher instances of possible alcohol problems, and that something like this would also aid in the area not being so deprived. So there may be creating some jobs in that and could have an effect of less alcohol problems because the area is deprived. How far do we think about these things?
I can't give you an answer to that. The
That's okay.
SIMD statistics are there. You've had the benefits presented to you by Caroline. You have to weigh up as a board that the benefits outweigh the identified alcohol-related harms. I can't tell you if granting this will improve the alcohol-related harms and reducing them or exacerbate them. I don't have that specialist knowledge. I don't know how the SIMD arrives at those statistics. All you are looking at is the licensing objectives here, and the protection of public health and alcohol-related harm is a licensing objective, which is why we've considered alcohol deprivation. So that is there. You're weighing it up, the benefits of having this store across the objectives, particularly the protection of public health, against the identified alcohol-related harm that the SIMD came to, which was summarised in the report and which Caroline referred to in her statement. So I can't predict what the SIMD will do with this information. You're not being asked to predict that either. You've got to weigh up the benefits that the applicant has put before you against the harm that you've summarised in your report that has led you to the watching brief, and determine whether or not you can justify a departure in granting a slightly increased capacity, which you've heard is 3% of the total overall space. So I can't give you an answer, Jeff. That is something that you as a board are going to have to debate and determine.
I'm not trying to predict it, but it's fair for me to consider it. Thank you.
But how can you consider it if you don't know what the impact of the grant will have on those statistics? I think you have to focus on the legal test, the licensing objectives, the harm that you've already identified against the benefits that Caroline has put before you. I don't think you should be straying into areas that are out with the control of the board at this point in time. I think that's very dangerous. And my apologies if you can hear my dog snoring.
Okay, so I think we've had a wealth of questions on this application today. So I'm going to ask Ms. Loudon to make her closing remarks. Obviously, restrict yourself to what's actually relevant here. We heard a lot in your initial representation to do with the benefits of the supermarket as a whole, which isn't really the thing we're concentrating on. So if you've got any closing remarks, please, Ms. Loudon, I'll bring you in now.
Thank you so much. No, I won't subject you to another 9 pages of submission, I promise. So in terms of what we have, I think it's really helpful because we now know that we're just looking at the licensing objective of protecting and improving public health, and that's linking back to alcohol-related harms only. You can depart from policy where you are satisfied that an applicant can meet those licensing objectives. It is my view that those licensing objectives and the point I've put to you about it's good to work, it's good to have the economic investment in this particular area and the good jobs that will come from this application, 35 of them, and Aldi does recruit locally. They will seek to have people coming in from Macduff itself in terms of working. We are an excellent retailer. Our licensing history is not besmirched in any way. I do all of the licensing for Aldi across Scotland, and if there was an issue, I would know about it, and there's nothing at all. The diligence is very strong, the investment is very strong, the history of working with Scotland, there's no, for example, there's no negative police report here, there's no negative LSO report at all, other than suggesting that there is over-provision in Macduff itself. So we've discussed that is not the case. It's my position that the locality of Macduff is not over-provided, that we are different from the 3 premises that are already in existence there, and I would call upon you to allow this new Aldi to go ahead at the current application of 40.2 metres squared, in the hope that we can deliver a store for Macduff prior to Christmas time 2024 and not have any more legal delays. So I think I'll rest there, but I'm grateful to you all for such an energetic and engaging conversation with regard to this application. And Councillor Goodall, you're totally right. People do come in to an Aldi, and you're absolutely right to mention it. So I'm grateful to you for surmising that as well. And I think that probably gives me a chance to put my mic on mute again. Grateful to you.
Okay, thank you. So, members, do you require any legal advice from the clerk at this point? I think we've exhausted all the possible questions we could give Fiona today. No. So, in that case, could you outline the terms of the legal test, please, again, Fiona?
Thank you, Chair. As I indicated at the beginning, in terms of the legal test attached to the papers, there's no grounds to refuse this application in relation to the legal test. All the local conditions have been agreed to and amended documents submitted to the satisfaction of the LSO. The whole point of this hearing today is purely on the difference between the Aberdeenshire average and the capacity that the applicant is seeking, and whether you've been provided with sufficient evidence to be able to justify a departure to that policy today, bearing in mind Macduff is a watching brief. It is not declared to be over-provided for. Looking at the alcohol-related harm against the benefits of the small increase that is being sought here. So the application will be granted. It all comes down to the capacity issue, whether the applicant has satisfied you that the benefits of operating with the slightly higher capacity increase outweigh the identified harm in relation to the public health licensing objective through the board's policy. So that's all that we're looking at here. So it's to grant subject to the local conditions, but it's purely down to the justification for a potential departure to policy in this case.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. I think that's very clear to everybody. Do members wish to retire to deliberate? Mr. Crowson? You're on mute. How's everybody doing that today?
Sorry, no, I was going to put forward the motion.
Right, we're not quite there yet, so no indication that you want to retire. That's good. So I will now open the matter to members for debate. Mr. Crowson?
Right, so I'm not putting forward a motion. I know we're not there yet, but I would be minded that the applicants have put forward a sufficient case for why they need the area that they have requested. And I don't think that there would be the potential to harm would outweigh the benefits. I think it's a bit borderline. I think the percentages they've shown is quite small relative to what some of their other stores is. So it's not like they personally are asking for a specifically large area. Also, the point that I made earlier, about deprivation in relation to alcohol problems in the area, that we have to give consideration to businesses possibly lifting areas out of deprivation, that it could actually have a positive effect.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mason?
Yeah, I think we got bound down a bit with the size of the area. What I was concerned on was the two license objectives that it could breach. I was worried about that, but I've had my mind settled on that, so it should be fine. I think the area of how the size of the merchandise and the display area is quite irrelevant when you're talking about alcoholism. If someone comes up to the shelf and sees the brand of vodka that they don't have, that normally drink, they would just pick another one, really, would they? I don't know. Maybe they would. I don't know. Anyway, I think we should be coming to a conclusion now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other contributions for the debate. So in that case, members, can you please confirm you've received sufficient evidence upon which to make a decision?
Chair, I
Mr.
think
Taylor?
Mr. Taylor wants to come in.
Yeah, I see his hand up. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, thanks very much. Apologies for the late hand. I would just comment that I appreciate it's not a big difference in display area, but at the same time, there was mention that some of the stores operate as a percentage between 2 to 6%. Yes, there are some jobs available here. And all these considerations, well-paid jobs, which may well help the deprivation aspect. But ultimately, there is also the concern to alcohol-related health, alcohol-related harm. So that's the aspect that I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So going back to my question then to members, have you received sufficient evidence?
Yes.
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 Okay. In that case, we can move to calling for a motion, please. Mr. Menard?
Yeah, the motion I would propose is that we approve the application and accept the 40.2 square meters. I believe that the Aldi will can meet the objectives of our policies, and seek a seconder.
So can I just
Okay, you might
clarify,
want-
Mr. Maynard,
yes.
that you're saying that they meet the objectives, but what you're saying is that they have demonstrated that the benefits of complying with those objectives outweigh the identified harm?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need to add that it justifies a departure from policy?
Yes, sorry, it does. It justifies a departure from policy.
Okay, Mr. Crowson, please. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I would like to second that. I don't think I need to add anything to it other than a final apology for getting the name wrong earlier.
Okay, thank you. Is there an amendment or a contrary view? No. In that case, can we just confirm the decision is unanimous? Oh, Mr. Taylor?
Sorry, I am going to put forward a contrary view in terms of, in my thinking, that the watching brief in terms of level of alcohol harm does take the upper hand. I would be prepared to and therefore I would wish to retain the 34.3 square metres of display area, but willing to accept that it gets increased via on seasonal occasions, including Christmas, New Year and Easter.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Mr. Goodall?
I'll second Ian's motion. Thank you.
Okay, do we need any clarification on that, Ms. Stewart, on the wording? No.
No, but it would just be perhaps some explanation as to why the applicant's submissions about the benefits of the licensing objectives don't outweigh the alcohol-related harm. Your reasoning.
Okay, Mr. Taylor?
The reasoning will be in terms of community health and the need to be aware of the level of harm potentially through alcohol, through the use of alcohol.
Thank you.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Goodall?
Yes, if you want more detail, you go to the submissions by the applicants themselves. Macduff is within the 5 income deprived towns in Aberdeenshire, and the evidence of harm is still in the top 5 towns of Aberdeenshire, and that is of concern, and that's why we have these policies in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right, in that case, we need to go to a vote. Ms. Stewart?
Just bear with me a second while I call up the voting slip.
Yeah. Well, they could sum up. We need to confirm the motion and amendment, and then we can ask for summing up.
So I can confirm that the motion is with, I've got too many documents open here.
Mr. Menard?
Mr. Menard, seconded by Mr. Crowson, to grant the application as applied for on the basis that the applicant has demonstrated that the compliance with the licensing objective outweighs the identified alcohol related harm and therefore justifies his departure to policy in this case. The amendment is with Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Goodall, to grant the application with the capacity set at the Aberdeenshire average of 34.2 metres square, with the provision for an increase in that capacity for seasonal displays, particularly Christmas, New Year and Easter. Do you wish to take summing up before we move to the vote, Chair?
So summing up, we'll go first then to Mr. Taylor.
In summing up, excuse me, I would just highlight the policy and the need to be aware of the level of health and overuse of alcohol being a prime consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Menard?
Yeah, the applicant has shown that they are a responsible business. It's not only not only are they supplying the local area, they'll be supplying the greater area, including Banff, Macduff, King Edward, and even down as far as Turriff and all the surrounding areas. So that is, to my mind, a good reason to allow the departure from policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we go to the vote, please, Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. If you indicate when your name is called whether you're for the motion or the amendment. Mr. Adams is not present today. Ms. Dawn Black.
Motion.
Mr. Jeff Crowson.
Motion.
Mrs. Marion Ewanson,
Motion.
Mr. Jeff Goodall,
Amendment.
Mr. Trevor Mason,
Motion.
Mr. Richard Menard,
Motion.
Ms. Jenny Nichol,
Motion.
Mel Sullivan,
Motion.
and Mr. Ian Taylor.
Amendment.
Thank you. The motion is carried by 7 votes to 2 to grant the application as applied for, on the grounds that the benefits of complying with the licensing objectives as outlined by Ms Loudon outweigh the identified alcohol-related harm and justify a departure to policy in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I can confirm that this hearing is now concluded. So thank you for your interest in this business. I can ask you to leave the meeting, and the Deputy Clerk will confirm the position before we go on to the next item.
Well, I've confirmed the decision. It is a public hearing, so if you wish to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to do so. But I'm pretty sure you're welcome a nice cup of tea to recover from today. But thank you very much for attending.
Thank
you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. My very, very dry mouth needs to subside for a bit. I do have an interest in a later application, so I will stay, but it's just in relation to that. And again, thank you all for your time. I do appreciate the depth of discussion that we've had this afternoon. And again, to all your licensing team for getting us to this date, because as I say, this would allow the Aldi hopefully to open before Christmas. I'll go and report back immediately. They can start on site. Appreciate your time.
I will be leaving the meeting, but thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and hopefully welcome you all into Aldi Macduff sometime in the future. Take care.
Thank you. Chair, you're on mute.
I was saying thank you to Rebecca, and I was thinking that Jeff would be heading up there looking for Lidl. So now, members, it is 1 o'clock. Standing orders don't necessarily apply to the licensing board as they do in other council meetings, but do we want to break now for lunch? Would that be appropriate?
I think it
And then
would.
come back in?
I think
Yes.
it would be appropriate.
So then the next
Took quite a
question
lot,
is,
yeah.
how long do you need? Would 30 minutes do? We're not in Woodhill House in a big queue.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay, so we can continue with the business.
Yeah.
I would ask those applicants that have dialed in and have been waiting patiently, if you would like to hang up and redial into the meeting when we reconvene at 1:30, to save you hanging around so you can get some lunch as well. And thank you for your patience.
Okay, so we'll see you all back at 1:30.
And again, I would remind you to switch your cameras and your mics off just to make sure while you're having your lunch. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Okay, and the live streams both. That's good.